falling. Madam Clerk, are you gonna?
Yes. Okay, so we'll call this meeting to order and do a very quick roll call of the committee members to get started. David Merriman. Present. Jasmine Long. Present. Councilwoman Tennille Kaus. Here. Heather Brissett. Present. And Councilwoman Yvonne Conwell. Present. Wonderful. Everybody's here and accounted for, and we received no Sabrina, oh my gosh, I didn't write you down because I knew you were going to be here. Sabrina Roberts is here as well, representing the county executive. So everybody is here, and we received no public comment in advance of today's committee meeting. A quick public service announcement as to why we are meeting in person versus virtually. According to the rules, we have to pass a virtual meeting policy as a full commission before we are able to actually have a virtual meeting as a committee. And so we are meeting in person today in hopes that at the next commission meeting, it gets the virtual policy gets passed by this commission, and then moving forward, committee meetings will be able to be held virtually to hopefully promote inclusivity and productivity so that way no one has to worry about getting here. That's correct. It will be for commission and committee meetings. Ideally, we'd still host the commission meetings in person, but there would be the opportunity for virtual participation in the event that a weather event happens or someone isn't able to be here.
There is no public. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We are here to have the initial meeting of the Mental Health Committee of the Women's Health Commission. We are, as we've discussed in our Women's Health Commission meetings over the past year, we are focusing on two main topics of interest for the commission: the reproductive health through a woman's life cycle, as well as mental health. And so you are all members of the Mental Health Committee, and our goal here today is to try to develop some priorities for 2025 prior to the end of the calendar year, as well as looking into the next year, having kind of an open discussion about tangible things that we can do, hopefully in the last quarter, but thinking about the next year as well. I know we had heard some great presentations from Project Noir and other folks, and so I think we're just trying to bring our committee together and think about both projects that we might need resources for, but as well as projects where we can get our name as a commission out there on things that we are doing in the community. So I think we can open it up for discussion. Sabrina, you look like you have something you might want to add.
Yes, because we had a committee meeting earlier of the Physical Health Committee, and they'll bring all of those recommendations to you. So not to put too much pressure on this group, if it's something that this group needs to sort of massage a bit more in order for the rollout to be in 2026, the Physical Health Committee does have some items for 2025 and have thought about 2026. So as a commission, there will be some takeaways for 2025. So as you're planning, you don't have to feel so pressured to say, I have to have something complete by 2025, because there are some things that the other committee is going to bring forward that all of you will be in lock-sync on, and discussions you've already had. But I won't steal their thunder. They'll, ask you to approve their recommendations. So I just wanted to let you know they do have something for 2025 and a myriad of things for 2026.
I've been reading, and I hope I haven't missed any steps in my reading, but I believe that County Council is bringing forth proposed legislation or maybe recommendations regarding natural hairstyles. And I wonder if there's something that we can do in alignment with this commission in mental health and self-image, in alignment to support council as that moves forward in unrolling that in terms of just how we feel about ourselves, how we feel in our natural state. I don't know if we would want to direct that towards even our younger women as we look across, we have talked in our larger meetings, birth to grave, so to speak, and so making sure we're hitting every population. But I think that that might be a nice opportunity to tie in with one of the priorities of council and some of what the Women's Health Commission is doing in self-worth, our self-image, et cetera. And so putting that for the group, I don't have it fully formed, and I think it is Councilwoman Conwell, I'm sure you're more in touch with where that legislation might be and different things like that, but just wanted to put that out there for the group.
Gotta talk on this. I'm looking at my calendar. It passed out of committee today, but since it's an ordinance and it's in our HR policy, it will be 3 readings. So I was trying to be at council on the 9th, which was introduced. It went out of committee today, the 23rd, and then probably, if everything goes well, October 7th. It's in the law department to look at some other things to add, not just on terms of, I try to look at county as a whole and not just a segment of people, like African Americans or whatever, just how it impacts all of us. And I know there was some discussion in committee today about different color hair. Some employees don't like blue and pinks and all that. So they're going to look at it in the law department just to see and make sure that it's as inclusive as it can be. But I didn't sponsor it, but I'm supportive.
Is there something specific that I'm just trying to think like that we can do either around education or are there resources needed to promote it? Have you thought any bit about that specifically, like something tangible that we can do to?
I think education for our schools and our employers would be particularly important. So I don't know if we could create kind of a 1-page or at most 2-page FAQ, something quick to learn about. And then I also think just as we're looking at self-care and body image, which plays out into our mental health, not knowing what the physical group talked about this morning, but excited to hear more about that. If there's any events planned, especially for that younger generation, if there's breakout sessions or anything, this sounds like this could be a session where they, we can have stylists in the community, people who do hair color, people who do natural styles, people who do, to talk to the girls about just, you're beautiful no matter if your hair is long and straight, short and curly, et cetera. So just some of that positive self-esteem is what I was thinking about with our young girls, but definitely FAQ type of education with our employers in the city, and I think it'd be helpful with our schools as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
definitely. What comes to mind when you mentioned that was having like a community healing and awareness, and we can have sister circles where individuals can describe and hear from others, be uplifted, but also talk about the challenges that they have experienced. And I'm thinking, you mentioned the schools, I'm also thinking the faith-based community is one of the communities that already exist that we could tap into to be able to start those sister circles.
I would I would be more engaged too. I like that, all that. Just to maybe, for us to put together maybe a survey for the employers. This will, contracts and things, it will be written into, basically falls under the human rights ordinance as well, but just to maybe philosophically understand where hospitals and Sherwin-Williams, places like that, with their CEOs, think about this. I did ask, were there any cases that we knew of in the city or in the county that had dealt with any of these cases with their employers, and they weren't familiar with any. They did put something about safety in there, so depending if you have very long hair. So I think we should, maybe on the other side of things, try to understand why they may have policies that go against, to some degree, this ordinance.
Just as the Physical Health Committee will come forward with very specific things around physical health and life cycle. So feel free to dream and talk about sister circles. They can run concurrent or one after another. So sky's the limit with this group to figure out mental health across the county with all populations of women.
One thing that we had talked about when we got the presentation from Councilwoman Turner on the work that she did on fibroids was that model is something that's really replicable, and especially when you talk about mental health and bringing women together and to talk, whether it's through a sister circle or through a gathering or however it is, like what are the topics potentially in the mental health. I think certainly protecting your crown is one of them, but are there other topics too that we can think about that would fit into that kind of model to help promote this idea of community and support?
I think there is so much to talk about on this particular topic. It is multifaceted. So we can talk about, of course, grief and what that means to our community members, of loss, in terms of despair, but also in terms of what it means to not be okay. And I think to your point about Laurel, the sister circles or the conversations, where we can play a role is actually giving people a voice to speak about what they have gone through and what they've experienced and how it has impacted their lives and their livelihoods. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. When we look at violence, when we look at poor health outcomes in our community, so much of it is inextricably linked to adverse outcomes in some way or another. And something that may not have been addressed or spoken about previously, but that they're dealing with in real time. And so how do we actually move the needle forward? And how do we look at behavioral health in a way that is not just the traditional, I feel sad, but I am sad. And I need someone to notice that I am sad or something is wrong with me to move a needle forward. So this work is so nuanced, and it's hard to answer some questions directly only because if we really want to do it the right way, we have to look at the nuances and we have to look at how it impacts. Recently, I had a conversation with some colleagues about the new jail and who are the individuals who are getting contracts to work on the jail, and should we as African Americans even want to work on the jail? And what I had to say was, shout out to my colleague, Ms. Conwell over here, there is an ideology that we want to give dignity to the folks who are in those jails. We want to ensure that those pregnancy pods are actually nice and welcoming, and whatever your situation is, you still have dignity, even though you're in this facility. right? And so those are the mental and behavioral health things that folks may not think about, even in the economic development side, where I can have a conversation with Ms. Yvonne Conwell, and she tells me, Jasmine, we toured these jails and we saw this and that, and that's where my mindset is to give a new jail. These are going to be facilities that are unfortunately have to exist. But how do we ensure that the mental and behavioral health services are there for the folks that need them? How do we make sure that we do things for folks that are with dignity that really ensures that y'all survive and thrive? So I know I said a lot, and maybe I said nothing at the same time, but all of these things run together. And so for us, I think we have to at some point streamline or think about the 3 to 5 priorities, because mental health is so prevalent, and we have to think about what really is going to, and at the end of the day, it's a lot going on. So how do we save our community?
Can I just speak to, I think, an important theme of how we serve people, maybe in some of their toughest moments if they're in jail or they're in treatment, but importantly, how we serve them outside of those tough moments, before they get there and after they're there, because those are just points in their life. Last week, Councilwoman Conwell co-led a community forum where we talked about the impacts of new federal policy, SNAP and Medicaid. And I think as an organization, DHHS is recognizing this is the monumental policy change that we're going to struggle with for the next 2, 3, 4 years. And I would propose an idea that at some point maybe we have Director Kevin Gowan come forward to the commission, or maybe we even co-sponsor a community forum on behalf of the Women's Health Commission talking about the impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill. Councilwoman Conwell spoke very eloquently about how this will impact so many of our communities, so many of our friends, our family members. And this is not theory. This is not something that will come. This is law right now. As of July 4th of this year, this became the law. And I don't think it's an overstatement to say there's not a policy that had a stronger impact on mental health as the Affordable Care Act lifted up parity. And we said we will treat people regardless of their conditions. Lots of room for improvement in how we treat them, but I think leveling that field created an opportunity for us to recognize mental health as a co-occurring condition that has the severity of so many other co-occurring conditions. As a community, what are we going to do about it? Because this is here. And technically, it could be implemented tomorrow. And I think in some ways, we're all going to be asking ourselves over the next year, how does this affect us and what can we do differently together?
So along the lines of what was said earlier, I want to go back to what Jasmine mentioned, Commission Member Jasmine Long. At the end of the day, people want to belong somewhere. At different iterations in their life, they may find themselves in our county jail. Some people may have some addiction issues. Whatever the case, before a person gets there or after they're there, once they leave, people want to feel a part of something. And I think it goes to our discussion at the last commission meeting. How do we create these safe spaces for people? No matter where they are in this county, they want to feel connected to something. I remember when I had my daughter, at that moment in my life, there were a group of women who had young children. We leaned heavily on each other for resources, just to talk. Like with any other group, when you have some like situation, how do we create space for people who may not have a lot of friends? They say your longevity is based on your circles. So how do we, if we want to help the healthy Cuyahoga, how do we create space? We're going to have forums, right, for different things. But where do we insulate people that they develop relationships to? So I don't want to lose that piece, because that's very important for people.
I'm happy you brought that up, because in order to get to service, you have to have access. So how do we access service? A lot of people don't know where to begin. And oftentimes, sometimes when they call, they don't get an immediate response. One of the things we spoke about earlier was having navigators. I think navigators could be those individuals who advocate for the individuals who feel lonely, who feel they have no one else. They could be that stopgap, so to speak, in helping individuals with getting connected, following up with them, almost like a doula does.
Like, we have to acknowledge that social isolation is still very real. We think COVID is over, but the remnants of COVID have not left our communities. And we have to acknowledge that and find the community voices that help to connect us. When I think about what we do in this work with doulas, it really translates to everything. When I broke my ankle, I was in the hospital. I was in an emergency room. And I've shared this story recently because, you know, I'm Jasmine Long, healthcare, da-da. And so I was in the room, about 45 minutes to an hour, ankle throbbing. They had to do the x-rays. And then a nurse came, or the receptionist came in and she said, hey, we need to collect your insurance copay. She says, $500, this is that. So I was like, okay, you know, I'm trying to find my purse. I'm struggling because I broke my ankle. I'm in pain. But I had a girlfriend with me, and she said, excuse me, we're not doing this. She said, when we come out, we'll process that she's in tremendous pain right now. She hasn't had any pain medication. She doesn't know what's going on. We're going to deal with this when we leave. We're not going to deal with this now. She said, you had ample opportunity when we were out there waiting for 45 minutes to be seen to help. I said, But that was like, she was like a doula to me. Like, it was just someone who, and I do this for a living. So I was just like, okay, here. She said, you know, okay. And my friend said, absolutely not. We will not be doing this. We will not be harassing her. She is in an obscene amount of pain. And we can deal with this when we go outside. And guess what they dealt with it? We went outside. And so it's those moments of just having an advocate or having someone or us knowing, and we did talk about this from the day one, it's just having the ability to be comfortable with saying, I'm not okay, or I need help, or I need something else. And it's not adversarial, it's not a knock to a hospital system or anything like that. It's just like, hey, this experience wasn't good for me. Like, how do we open those opportunities up through these conversations to say that this is not okay? And how do we, as we said at the very beginning of this, the onset, how do we educate our friends? My friend, because she knows me, she just said, absolutely not. But like, how do we make sure whenever we go with our fathers, our daughters, our kids, that we are the ones to say, slow down, calm it down, and we're going to do this. And so much of our healthcare, of course, is tied to those healthcare experiences, but we have the ability to really slow things down and take care of ourselves. And social isolation is still real, and folks will sit in their homes because of those adverse experiences. See, for me, that was an adverse experience. I'm like, oh, okay, this is what it is. But for someone else, that would have been like very traumatic. Like, my ankle is broken. I can't move my foot. And I'm dealing with this experience. And someone is coming in here and saying, we need this money from you before we do anything. But at the end of the day, when my friend said, no, we're going to do this, guess what they did? They backed up. And they didn't need that money to perform services on me at all. Like, they wanted, of course. But, like, how do we have the opportunity, to speak for ourselves and to say that? And so a lot of what I hope that we can do through education and this commission is to use all of our lived experiences to shape the narrative. Like, we are not monoliths. We are not unique. What all of us are experiencing is what everyone in our county experiences, regardless of their race, socioeconomic status, or anything. They go to these hospital systems. There's an older white man who was a veteran who was sitting in the room right next to me, who was experiencing a lot of challenges and was trying to get out of the hospital and to get taken to the VA to receive treatment, and that was a lift for him. And I only was over there listening to it because I'm hearing it, right? I would never have known the challenges of if you come in, you actually are a veteran and you get VA services and access, how challenging it might be. He was having a heart issue. And he said, no, I'll leave. They said, no, you have to go to get treatment. And if the VA can't take you with a bed today, we have to take you to main campus because we don't know that you'll live. And he didn't want to go to main clinic. He just wanted to go to the VA because he said, I don't have the money to pay for a bill if I go to Cleveland Clinic. if I go to UH, if I go to, I don't have the money to pay. I want you to take me to the VA because it'll be free. And they kept telling him, sir, I'm so sorry. We don't know that they can accommodate you. But if you don't go, you might die today. Right? You see what I'm saying? Like, these are the things that we will deal with. These are the choices that everyday people are having to make. And I'm going to stop being and talking, but I just like, I live this. I experience this. We all see this. And like, I think we have to bring our lived experiences to the table, because if not, our community is not going to get better. I think that I was in a funder meeting today, and I'm like, I have seen even the infant mortality movement move from 2020. And a lot of our movements have changed and shifted. We are allowing those who are most impacted to have an opportunity to speak to an issue. We've always cared about the issue. We've known what the issues are, but our voices are taken more seriously. And I think we have to really lean into that, because that's how we're actually going to see a change and a difference. Okay, sorry.
Ooh, it seems like, oh, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, are there specific topics, especially if we think about the lifespan of from girl to woman to older woman, yeah, seniors, elders, yeah, seasoned individuals? Are there specific topics that come to mind for us that we could be thinking about around Councilwoman Turner's model? Especially.
If I may say, I think because violence is so prevalent in our county, I think being able to do the grief recovery work or education around folks who have experienced violence is probably top of mind to me, because it ties into so many different aspects of what we deal with and how folks are able to actually live their lives. So violence is number one to me, because it shapes, even when you think about losses and maternal losses, but like elders who are raising their grandchildren in the Fairfax neighborhood, or things such as that, or folks who are living different kind of lifestyles, absolutely. But I do think that the one area that we continue to fail women is on the season side. Don't pop my hand. We don't do enough to support folks around perimenopause, menopause, and hormone replacement therapy. Folks don't know what they don't know. And so I think that's a great area where we can ensure that women have the access that they need to find support there.
And so much of that is, even though it's physical health, it is so much mental health. Like I feel like 80% of it is like it. Even though it's your body physically changing, it's like impacts your mind in a way that I don't think any woman is prepared for. The one thing I wanted to add too, though, because I keep hearing this theme as you guys are talking about like the navigation, the social isolation. Sorry, it's been a long day, and just trying to figure out, that piece of it too. Like that, it's like you need a navigator from when you're a child. That's your parent, hopefully, right? And then you have a child, and then you have a child, you get pregnant, hopefully you have a doula or a navigator, and then you got to deal with all these other health, potentially, you have to deal with health challenges, you need an advocate and a navigator. And then even in death, or approaching death, or in sickness, like having a doula, because are you guys doing that now? We don't with the doula now. But I've seen that, out in the ecosphere, and I'm like, gosh, like, everybody needs that. Everybody needs a champion and an advocate, and that can make those experiences, if not tolerable, at least you can, plow your way through it. But I definitely hear that as a theme too, but I love, I'm all about the perimenopause. But
Well, again, the Physical Health Committee will be coming forward with some ideas on their topics. And they did the fibroid issue, which was huge issue. The one thing that I thought, it was a perfect forum, but there was a little something missing. Support for people who were in tears, in uncontrollable tears sometimes, about their experiences, the fact they may or may not be able to have children, And so there was a lot of different buckets of grief going on. I'm like, wow, we probably should have had some folks here. But that could be something we can, the physical subcommittee comes back to make sure we insert some type of support when we're having those forums, because it's highly emotional.
I agree. Another,
Yes.
another area that we could focus on is trauma-informed care. Understanding what it is, how it impacts people, and how they can potentially address it. Yeah, because there are so many things that happen to individuals in their youth that they have no idea how it affects their lives later on. Prior to coming here, I saw a news clip about the child that came up missing that the Amber Alert went out for the other day. Yeah, and the mom, and the fact that he was reporting that the mom was physically abusing him, torturing him, tied him up, and I guess she aired it on social media. So how does that child go forth knowing that the woman, the person that he loves that's supposed to care for him did that to him? How does he understand that mom is not mentally well?
Teach them how love is supposed to feel, number one. And being a kid in trauma, and I'm sure all of us have a story to tell, you either crumble or you survive. But it's the different supports that you have along the way, I think, is what maybe pulls you in the right directions. Kids are resilient, so I think if we could get him to show him that, that's why I joined mental health, because I grew up in a mental health family. So it's very hard when it's your mom.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, I didn't get therapy until I was older, grown. So I had suffered through that. So now that we have people in the community that have been through these kind of things, we can try to find out how we can help those kids get through it. He's resilient, he's young, but if we show him where love is, the right love, and then try to figure out, I guess, with a child therapist, how our family members can be sick in different ways, and that it's nothing against him, but it's going to be that love and the circle.
And Councilman Conwell, and I think that's exactly why in doing this work, I hope that we can do a multifaceted thing, right? So one thing is that we have to get more culturally competent trained professionals, but we have to grow our minority population of social workers, therapists, doctors, and nurses, because all of that makes the difference. Like, these are things that if you don't have the cultural nuance to even address it and have that unique conversation, it's still not going to make the difference. And so it's critically important that we really look at this in a multifaceted way as a county, because everyone needs different help. We have immigrants, refugees, Black folks, white folks, Hispanics. Like, we have everything in our community, and we all have a different level of need and things that are really challenging to us. But I think the universal thing is we all want our kids to be safe and healthy and whole. We all want our moms to be healthy and whole, and want our elders to be able to age in dignity in place. See, she know my word, dignity, right? And dignity in place. And so how do we, through education, conversations, nuance, be able to have those discussions to say that whatever the situation is, we just want folks to have dignity. We want folks to, now, we haven't talked about what's happening nationally and even on the state level, but like, we have to look at how we optimize Medicaid these days, how we optimize and deal with the nuances around the SNAP requirements for work and Medicaid eligibility, because that's going to have a major impact on everybody in our county, right? And so how do we, through conversations and partnerships, ensure that our families have what they need to be healthy and whole? We don't want to go back, right? We don't want to go back. We want to ensure healthy, I know. If we do this work every day, it's a lot. It's a heavy lift. But I think that we have the ability to have sustained conversations that really shift a narrative, that really shift how funds move, but that also shift how folks care and think about people. We have to change folks' mind about. Ms. Conwell has been extremely involved in the Hitchcock. So just because someone has an addiction issue doesn't mean they're a bad person. It does not mean they're a bad person. We don't know what their circumstance, but we work to figure out what that circumstance is, and we provide them a home, and we make sure that they're taken care of and their kids. And so how do we continue to have those kind of sustained dialogues? So I do look forward to hearing what physical health says, and I think it has to be hard. These are challenging conversations because mental and behavioral health is so nuanced. It is so rampant in this community. We could walk outside and see it, right? And how do we actually touch their lives and give them something different?
Yeah,
For those of us who don't work in the direct healthcare field, so of course I'm an attorney by trade, I think that the trauma-informed conversation is so important because what I see is we talk about trauma-informed in the medical field, and it seems like a lot of people get it, but are our teachers trauma-informed? Because we can train all the doctors and all the nurses, but our kids are with our teachers every day. Are our lawyers trauma-informed? The domestic violence victim, might go to the hospital, get treated, and then go to an attorney who is not trauma-informed and have a horrible experience, and we don't want that to happen. And so when we think about trauma-informed, I think some education around the traditional professional circles that we think about in regards to trauma-informed is something that we can make an impact, invite lawyers, we can collaborate with the CMBA and do a CLE, for example, for their members, different things like that. And I'm sure, different teachers, there's tons of professionals that touch people every day, and collaborating with them and doing some education, I think, could be beneficial as well. Beauticians, barbers, are faith-based leaders in the community. I think that would be a very powerful meeting or education session. So a lot of groups that we could reach out to. And then we can be talking the same language, be rowing in the same direction. And so I think that baseline education might be very helpful.
yeah, and I apologize, I'm gonna have to leave the commission early today. I do also just want to propose for a 2025 activity that I understand that Cuyahoga County Alcohol and Drug and Mental Health Service Board hopefully will be selecting a new leader this year. I think it'd be an opportunity to invite that person to come forward, hear from them, what they are planning in their new leadership role, and hopefully, and then to have them hear from us, some of what we're talking about, because I think as our community's drug and alcohol board, they are put in place to provide leadership, and I think that in and of itself is, I think, is a sphere for us to work and for us to hopefully provide direction. So it's something I just would put out there.
I want to bring back to something in an earlier commission meeting that was brought forward about professional women. It was in the Project Noir, but it was also in our case, Citizens Advisory Council on Equity. They brought something forward about, women who are professional. So we often do service in some of our roles to folks in our through our different departments. Sometimes the people who give service need service themselves. So that's one of the things that was lifted up by quite a few different groups. So I want to make sure we keep that in the back of our minds too, the professional, if you will, tagline on that Project Noir study. What is happening in community with people who are charged to take care of other people?
So I don't know if we have lifted this up, but I think, to me, because we are the county, that should always be lifted up. These issues are not just impacting low-income women, right? Like, I think that might get lost in the sauce sometimes. These issues are really impacting the woman in Solon, the woman in Strongsville, the woman in Lakewood. Our issues in our community are so nuanced that it does take a heavy lift. And it takes support to even feel like I have the ability to say, I'm not well, right? And then where do I go to access services? So I think all of this really ties in. And today, I don't know if we're getting where you need, Madam President, I don't know if we're getting where you need to be. But I'm like, we are having a very nuanced conversation because it's so diverse, it's so impactful of every single thing happening in our community, and it really touches every facet of every single person's life in this county. We have folks who may be executives at bank who have children who are drug addicted, who have to take their children in. I mean, it's so much that are happening that really has an impact. And so how do we touch it all? We can't. And so I think that's what we keep trying to get back to, like, where is our focus? And I think we have to keep figuring it out because it's so vast and expansive. But everyone is having tremendous challenges. And it doesn't matter that we get up and we put our pretty suits on and our pretty dresses on and we do this and we get up and go to work every day, but we still are facing extreme life challenges.
I think this may be an instance where we have another subcommittee that will be rolling out some things, and it may not be able to be at the same time. It may have to be one and the other, one and then the other, because it's different. So we can discuss that in a larger council, but this may have to stand on its own as something, mental health, focused women, girls, whether it's forums, sister circles. A few people said trauma-informed care. You might have to change the name a little bit, and start there. There's so many different ways. Doing a co-sponsor of a forum on key policy issues that are going to impact families. A lot of head of household women who are head of household. So many different ways we can go. But at the crux,
I mean, I like what you said in regards to Councilwoman Turner's program, that it would have been nice. Hindsight is always 20/20, and it's great that she did that so we can learn from it, as we move forward. And so as our colleagues unroll what they're going to propose for the physical side, I think at the meeting we should take an opportunity and listen and see, is there a space to put a psychologist on that panel? Is there a space to put a doula on that panel? Is there a space, or is there, they're talking about, having miscarriages, and that's a very physical thing, but that's also a very grief, mental health thing. And so I think there will be some, after hearing what they have to say, we might be able to lean in with some partnership there, or even having grief support on site, et cetera. And so I think that might be another avenue.
So as you say that, we are happy to provide grief recovery specialists to be at these events to provide support, because again, what happens is folks don't generally have a place to talk about their traumas, right? So if you offer folks an opportunity to be able to speak about their traumatic experiences, guess what? The floodgates open up. So we're happy to offer grief recovery specialists. We do that through our wellness network that Sabrina helped us get up and running. And we can do that easy. I mean, these conversations, but I think what I want to make sure is that we let folks tell their traumas. How do we make it? Come on, sister.
Follow-up, yeah.
We have to make it so that they have shared these traumas and we've done something beyond just listening, that we actually try to make it better.
you've done something with your organization through our wellness network. As I was listening to all of you talk, and I'm a visual, so I'm doing a little table, going down, women, girls, forums, sister circles, trauma-informed, what's on your mind. So I have all these little notes, grief support. There was something when you talk about the piece of belonging and just being able to talk. There was at one point, there was a day set up where people came for an overview. I don't know if it was called Grief. It was a sister circle where they can unpack some things. And it was just kind of a 101. How do you begin? Maybe you don't want to go see a therapist, but you want some kind of friendship circle or something to unpack and maybe do a 101 on what does grief mean? Or calling it something, this trauma-informed care grief. It's not necessarily either one of those topics, but how do you name it? And have people come and someone walk through how to unpack all of that. And then here are some options for you, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a grief recovery specialist. There are so many different options for people. And they may not know that all these, you don't necessarily have to go straight to what that might mean. There's just different options. So,
I kind of was thinking, I think we have some great ideas, and I hope somebody's taking notes. I'm taking my own notes, but, you know, something that's unique that we haven't done from the county is podcast. So podcasts are kind of very inexpensive. We can make sure that we have professionals. I'm just thinking that it could cover some of these areas that we're talking about, and even do a podcast with a sister circle, you know?
that would be
You
great.
know, so it's very inexpensive. I was thinking in terms of, I like creativity, and I'm a visual person too, but I always try to, whatever issue we have, bring in all the groups at one time to kind of try to work on it. So why don't we challenge kids in school? We have our music ability kids to come out with some kind of song about trauma-informed care.
Or belong.
Whatever.
The positive side, belonging.
When we're trying to get to that young kid, that 7-year-old, or, yeah, they may listen to you, they may listen to me, but they're gonna listen to that
Yeah, there's a
kid.
different
If we can make it
language.
a kind of fun thing, because we're old, let's face it, we're old to them.
Not too much.
I'm
Not too much.
old.
We are done.
To them, yes.
Yeah, to them. We are over the lifespan. Why are we still exist, right? So that's kind of how I try to approach things. So if we have something, I think the podcast would be very good for our younger women, families, because they got a lot on their plate. And then if we can do a challenge for the kids to try to come up with something with the kids. And I'm sure as we keep talking, we'll have something come up for the seniors.
Right. I appreciate the podcast, because if I have one more meeting or one more event on my calendar, but I can listen to a podcast on the way to work, while I'm driving out of town, like, et cetera. Exactly. One more-
That's an
Partner, I
easy
put that down.
market.
We can- That's, I put Tri-C, like they have the podcast studio, There's an opportunity for partnership, and it helps us. Partnership
Have a
with Tri-C
studio
because they have the
too?
podcast studio, and that would allow for us to really reach all age.
Yeah.
The county has a really
We have
nice studio
too, if we-
downstairs too.
If we needed.
Oh,
Yeah.
see?
Yeah. I just wanted to make one point from early on in the conversation. Jasmine, you have brought up about the justice system and the atrocities that exist with mental health and substance use and women going through the system. And obviously, that's a big passion of mine. And I think that there could be something there both to like get feedback on the work that we're doing and the system we're trying to create, potentially through a podcast. But I was also thinking about the violence, and specifically domestic violence, and the amount of women and men that come through the jail that are involved in a domestic violence situation. And in a lot of cases, if the officer cannot determine who the perpetrator is versus the victim, they'll bring them both in. And I feel like that is something that we could really advocate and try to move the needle on, like, because it's such a terrible practice, you know, to have people re-traumatized, right? And when they have been, you know.
Miss Laurel, I've had a group, and I think COVID kind of got me off. That was my main focus when I got here. I always have every October, because that's the month, a 5 series, because usually October is 5 weeks, 5-week series for domestic violence. The sheriff's department always participated. Officer T, I can't say his full last name, so he just told me to call him Officer T. He always, the last session is a self-defense. I want to call it domestic violence training, but it's self-defense. The first one of the sessions is always, it starts out with the police. What happens from that beginning of 911 when they receive a call, hearing from their perspective. Then we always have a judge from domestic relations come in. Frankie Goldberg and a couple of others have presented where they talk about from just their standpoint. So they're taking the group, and it's once a week, usually on a Thursday, and the ladies come in and come for different. Then we always have a victim story. Different ones, always different ones every year to tell their, and believe you me, and for a while I went around District 7 to try to engage different women in different areas. But one time I made a mistake. And doing these things, you learn. I wanted to have it at a police station because it was near a bus. You look at, and boy, was I told wrong by a victim that how dare I have. So it taught me. So I just made it safe, and I've always been at our domestic violence, and I can't think of what they're called now. Are they called Journeys? Are they Journeys?
Yeah.
So, yeah, when people change their name. So I've always continued it at Journeys. And I have not had a chance to meet the new director, so we could get that back on. But it's a very good thing. It's on a bus line. I believe it or not, one of the years I had it, had some Asian people come out. It was, it's a small conversation. It's things that happen. I always make sure that I have food. I think I had, who's that lady that does the human trafficking? Renee. She, right. Yes, she came one year. She brought some women that had survived trafficking. They gave their story. I've always had somebody that could do sign language for the deaf. And so, I know, COVID happened and it just got me off on October. I always hold it at the Journeys. The earlier ones on kind of moved around, but I hold it there.
Was it always in October?
Always, because that's the month.
That's domestic violence month, yeah.
And we have, now we have Judge Madej, who has her domestic violence court docket, which actually works with the perpetrator. And they do a lot of like wraparound services, because there's not specific treatment for domestic violence perpetrated, but there's treatment for trauma, because as she said, to a T, everybody that comes through her court has had a traumatic life of being abused themselves, or, some kind of.
Definitely next October I'll start it. I know the guy, a deputy, came into council. He's like, I'm waiting on you, and it's free. All these people are willing. If you plan it, they give their evening up to do this. It's really dynamic, and we connect them to resources, because practically all the counties there, so they bring their resource materials for those women, and on this journey, men. I have been to some other people's forums where they have men are being abused. So it's an awesome thing. So we can
get
it back up.
Like trying to get them to just.
Subdue to women hitting them, but the reality is they're also victims.
When you have that boy and girl, I always give that example. You have that boy and girl growing up in an abusive household. They both can end up being abusers, or one can go one way, one can go the other. So it's always those dynamics that we never know how that person's gonna end up. But
Yeah.
I'll get back to it, Laurel. We can do it we can
Let's
do
do
it
it.
next year. I got a
Yeah.
whole year to plan.
W-
Whole year
I
to
like
plan.
that idea. You
With-
can come in.
Always done those.
With us coming up on the hour, I think the beautiful part is we're going to have another meeting. And especially since it'll be able to be virtual after you all vote in September, possibly circle back October to some further discussion. But for the sake of going to the full commission, again, Audrey takes amazing notes, but just to agree, everyone loves your idea, Councilwoman Conwell, about rolling that out. We're right on the cusp of October, though the podcast is something that would be very different from what the Physical Health Committee is doing. Here's the part. This committee can do a lot of things, but just to land on one or two right now, the podcast seems very something that they wouldn't expect. And that can be put together before the end of the year. It could be something for October, November to focus on something. And then absolutely, when we talked about the forums that Councilwoman Turner hosted, how we as this, I'm on both committees, this committee could push in with some grief recovery support there. I think that would add whatever they come forward with, if they're doing forums, to add that component. And then policy. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything today we need to get crossed, but looking at the policy that Laurel and Councilwoman Conwell mentioned about domestic violence and that policy to bring folks into.
I just want to not leave Laurel's point left because it matters to me too, and I think it matters to all of us. I think when we look at the new jail, I think we might have the opportunity to shape some policies. The things that happen to what I know, my lens is I was on pregnant moms. We push that work forward to not have moms be chained when they're giving birth. We push that work forward to ensure that they can breast pump for a year. And so making sure that we have policies in place at the new jail that really support our efforts around both physical and mental health. Because again, those moms may not take their babies home, but they still care about their babies. And so our responsibility is to make sure that they're heard, felt, and seen. So I just want to uplift that process when we talk about like policies. Because again, we could talk about what's happening at the state, but what's happening right here in our county? Like, what are the things that we can have the truest, right? Where are the areas that we can have the biggest impact? And I think that's an area that we can, at this table, we can shape that. I lean back to Councilwoman Commonwealth saying, I saw these other prisons or jails, and I saw how they were treating them with dignity. Yes, we don't want people in jail, but if they are, we want them treated well and taken care of. And so how do we make sure the policies... Okay, I heard you, sister.
I think you're.
Oh, we're
yeah,
coming October 17th. I know we are.
Right.
To speak to you, yes.
And
It's on the.
and I think
Sharon keeps me updated when
It's on her. It's on her calendar.
Councilwoman too, we can take you on a tour in the unit anytime. Yeah. So maybe you have the presentation, then we'll arrange that. Maybe if the women are open to it, you could come observe a session. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, we are the people that can set that policy. So let's do it. Yeah. No, yeah, we're doing a lot of it right now. So,
Wait till the new jail. We want things to
right,
go to the new jail that we've already implemented.
right.
So for the sake of the larger meeting on the 25th, because the podcast is the leading thing, I think it's, we picked a person, we don't have a chair, to bring forward just the couple examples of what this committee might want to work on. But because podcast was really your idea, how do you all feel that you bring it forward as one of the three things? Because we're gonna have plenty of other meetings and do a lot of other things, but for the sake of this meeting coming up, to say this committee will be working on setting up podcasts around this topic. If you all have any additional forums, we would provide grief recovery support, you know,
So what do
behavioral health support.
what do we want, Sabrina? Several things, so what would? I think we-
Podcasts.
I know podcasts, but what topics? So I think if
Oh.
we agree on that today, then we can go forward. We know we're gonna do a.
That was my
podcast.
question. Can we put some comments together about the
From-
podcast we could put
Right.
together and the host? Like, could we do that offline or we have to do that?
We could probably do that offline. Yeah.
We can send an email.
But trauma, if something around trauma, maybe
Mhm.
called or grief, something around that. And what we can do, Councilwoman Conwell, is provide you with the notes of the 3 things, just to remind you, what was your policy, Laura, around domestic violence?
And I think maybe we even do a new, a new jail and we can talk
Okay.
about the policies.
So
you
the
know.
2 pieces, those 2 anchors of policy, the grief support, meaning grief or behavioral health support at the forums if they have them next year, and then the podcast idea. But we can have plenty in the future, but at least that would be the components of what is the what, support for the other side, and then the policy. And again, we can provide you through Audrey and incomparable Ms. Demansky Diaz, those actual points you can read off.
So if I'm following you, Sabrina, are you saying that the first podcast would consist of Councilwoman Yvonne Conwell, who would go and?
No.
No?
No,
Oh.
no, meaning to your larger council, your commission, your commission to report back from this committee. These are the 3 areas, 2 policy areas, support to the other side, and podcasts. Just, right. No.
So I'm just sharing that with them.
Yes. And I don't think you necessarily have to have exactly who you're gonna have speak. They don't have their stuff. I mean, not something on their side, but,
No, we have to flush it out.
right. This is the first meeting.
Yeah, so we just wanna make sure what our, like Jasmine said, our takeaway homework is, what would that first topic be?
Yes.
And I thought it was
Get the
gonna be one of
buzz.
the things we talked about,
Tra-
you know,
I'm
the
wondering,
Trauma.
Yeah, and then we know who we need to get to bring in.
do you think that we could not do your whole panel, but do just a podcast in October on DV? Like pick one of those people, like maybe it's the judge, or maybe it's, I don't know if it's like,
Police officer.
maybe it's the police, maybe it's something. I'm thinking it would be a nice kickoff. I know.
All right, now hold on now, wait. I think that would not be a podcast, but I do think that we could make an event happen in October. It doesn't have to be at the front. It doesn't have to be big. I don't think a podcast is the right thing. I think if we want to step back into the swinger thing, I think a real event is the thing to do.
Maybe
Sorry,
it would-
Tanil.
No, it's okay, but I just, yeah.
We
No.
could put something together in a week, and then we could get. I know, not you. That's I said we.
I know, I
bro,
could put it together, cause like I said, all these
But
people
we're not trying to, no,
are,
we're
I
trying to
know.
protect our mental
But
health too. That's the
T is
issue.
on it.
I have a
if-
staff. We
But
can get
his
it
is
done.
a visual thing, where he
Yeah.
actually shows you the thing. You could get any judge from domestic relations. Yeah, would come on and do that. You can easily, unfortunately, find a victim, somebody that's.
No,
I
tell
want
it
to
no,
know.
She's saying
We can't do a podcast like
He
that.
wants it in person.
No, but only because if we do a podcast, we really have to sort it out, and it has to be timely. We can't just do one for domestic violence and not do it.
Yeah, you gotta,
You see what
you
I'm saying?
gotta
We have to-
do them in 5. yeah.
I'm not saying that, but Tanil's asked for that, so I think that we could do it. What I'm saying is we could do it. Look at Yvonne.
It could be
She's-
the later part of October.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be-
necessarily have to be
it could be at the
beginning,
last-
which
yeah.
would give us approximately
See, it's
4
so
weeks.
much information. It's so much that victim needs to know. That's why you're not gonna you got people coming in after work, 2 hours is the most, you're not gonna get all that in. So that's why I broke it down, and it was more,
Oh, once
it
a week.
it was
She's
once a
saying
week,
once a
it
week
was
to stage the whole
more,
month.
you know, they could decipher that. They could go back and really understand from the police standpoint why, I think that was just getting introduced at that time, why they were now taking both instead of
How about
just
I do this?
the
Can
man.
Can I make
There's
a
other-
suggestion to myself and all of us? What I will do is, I will reach out to Journey. I will reach out to Journey and see what they're doing in October, and we can partner with them on an event. They're already doing something. We know it. We'll
Yeah.
partner with them on
Yeah.
an event.
Okay.
I'm sure Journey is already doing something to celebrate the month. We will be a partner with them.
Okay. So
The D9s, maybe the Deltas.
that,
Yeah, but I can't let my baby, I worked for years.
so.
We're gonna let them bring that away
next
No,
year.
no.
We're
So
gonna bring that back, but
we'll
not
plan
this
that for next year, the way
Yes.
you envision it.
Yes.
We partner now just with the people who, in the crux of what they do, so instead of 1, 2, 3, it'll be,
Well, we'll see what they're doing, and if they're doing multiple, we'll partner. That's my commitment to you.
So maybe it'll help if you share with us what's on the county. Is anything on Thursday? I always had it on the Thursday night.
see, I have to go look, because,
You have to
we
look.
have
Okay.
yes.
other, and we have the SNAP stuff going on Medicaid, so it just depends.
Right.
So,
I tell you, everywhere I go, they say, you ain't had that. I was
well,
like,
we're gonna bring your.
COVID happened, I'm sorry.
We're gonna bring that back in 2026, October 2026, we're gonna bring it back.
We'll blow it out.
Behind you, in your vision for
But
it.
thank you, Jasmine, for checking in with Journey, because if they already have a turnkey event, we can co-sponsor that, so we can keep alive your thoughts around domestic violence, but then we do our own, you leading that charge next year.
Mhm.
So we have a lot to tell.
The one thing that I liked, and I fell off, I think, to Laurel's point, they, and I don't know if the county still pays for it, I hope so, but for the abusers, they had the judge can mandate them to go, and I was invited, I can't think, I know what the guy looks like over in the process, I went and met with him and everything, but something came up and I never went and sat in to a session. I like to feel it, understand it when I talk about it. So I could follow back up with that, maybe go to a session, because that was gonna be my next point. You know, we don't throw away people. In society, if we can heal that person that's the abuser, and they do a 12-step program. I wanted to learn about that. That was gonna be my next person that was gonna present. Yeah, I gotta get connected.
If you want to go do an observation of Judge Madej's courtroom, I think I can help make that happen, because that's exactly what they're doing, what her team is doing, working with the perpetrators. The other thought that I had with Journey, oh, well, it's 5:15. We probably have to keep going, but so my thought,
Are we
We're
concluding
still,
the
we're
meeting?
still in
We're
public.
still in,
We're
we're still in
you gotta-
public
we're still
session,
in
sorry.
public session.
sorry, the thought I had with Journey and the perpetrator and the victim is like, what if we had somebody, and this is, just an idea, somebody from Journey located in the jail or at some location where if officers had to bring them both because they just couldn't figure it out, that you had somebody there ready to help kind of peel it away and figure out what the actual situation is. But that's probably, I'm sure other cities have to do this right. There are other places that have to do this
I
right.
know we're not gonna prolong this, Laurel, but we have a contract with, Frontline, right? Where they go out for mental health crisis.
Yeah.
We need to explore that.
Right.
What do they do 365 days a year? There's not a crisis every day.
Yeah.
So could we be
And social workers
inclusive
out and
of
stuff.
them
Yeah.
being advocates, maybe at journeys or any of these, so it's just something to
Yeah,
think about.
yeah, no, that's
So
a
we
good
can
idea too. Send the
Leverage
social
that
worker
contract
out
a
and
little
stuff.
bit, maybe give them a little more money. Maybe, you heard me say maybe. I said maybe.
Okay.
Those
On
that are
that note, we're
watching
gonna
this.
adjourn the meeting.
Yes.
I want to thank all our committee members for coming today. Looking forward to the work, looking forward to the meeting on September 25th. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.